Positive luxury is an accelerator that helps companies to accelerate towards a new climate economy. And that means incorporating the principle of social, environmental, and innovation into the corporate strategy and in the business practices.
Is it getting easier to convince the buyers of luxury goods they should think more sustainably? Or even not just the customers, but the people making the goods?
I have to say that this is the first time that I have actually career satisfaction. Because yes, I mean, if you think about pre-pandemic, sustainability was something that it was not at the fore of many organizations and definitely not of many people. And what the pandemic has done, it's really enabled us, all of us, to pause and think about our relationship with the world, nature, and amongst other people. And since then, actually, sustainability has become not just an easy sell, but an easy conversation to have with everyone, especially with the younger audiences.
So it's been a bit of a wake-up call.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, when I started my career 20 years ago, it was an impossible task. Even 10 years ago, when Positive Luxury was born, it was still difficult. And we have gone through many, many waves, but now it's here to stay. Legislation is in our side for the first time in history, and more legislation is coming into play, especially with Europe and the Green Deal in the US, in Singapore, in China. So actually, everywhere in the world is becoming tighter and harder for corporations to get away with greenwashing, which is actually a good news, because companies that are really truly investing in sustainability will become A, more profitable, and B, will remain relevant to the younger consumer, which they do not conceive a world that sustainability is not part of it.
What sort of criteria do these companies have to pass if they're going to be recognized as a sustainable luxury brand?
We don't have a blended score, meaning that you don't have to have an average. We actually require a minimum of 50% on social, 50% on environment, 50% on governance, and 50% on innovation, which basically means that your blended score has to be a minimum of 50%. And this is kind of tough, but at the same time, incredibly informative, because it's an iterative process. So the first time that the organization comes to Positive Luxury, what we do is we help them to understand where they are. And then as we start working with them, we help them to understand what are the impacts, what are the dependencies, what are the gaps, what is the material risk for the business, and then what are the opportunities to actually turn their business more sustainable.
At the moment, being sustainable is an option. Should it be made mandatory?
It's happening. So in COP26, I'm almost going to say COP27 because I'm thinking about Egypt at the moment. COP26 has been a definitive point for companies to really understand the fact that sustainability is no longer an option. So Mark Carney, the ex-Chancellor of the Bank of England, have created a task force called the TCFD, and this is a new disclosure framework in which the investment community is subscribing to. So, you know, when before it was optional, today, if you want to borrow money, you will have to prove how your company is sustainable or compliant to ESG, which is environmental social governance framework.
Do you think that customers, when they're buying a Gucci handbag or a Rolex watch or a Rolls-Royce, really care about sustainability? They want the brand, they want the luxury, don't they?
Yes, they do want the brand, but they ask questions because their friends will think about, okay, what does that watch or that car say about you? So do you actually rather own a Rolls-Royce or a Tesla? That is completely two different messages in terms of what are you showing up in the world about. So I think that is the fact that you do want the watch, you do want the car, you do want your clothes, but actually you want to tell a story that goes beyond the material of the actual thing that you buy. And I think that's why the stories are very, very important, especially with Instagram and social media and so on, people want to be able to show out or show up in the world in a way that tells a great story about who they are. And that's what brands do. They help you to tell a great story about who you are. And if that brand is not in sync with your values, then is where the issue happens. That's why I keep saying that, you know, the younger generations wants to show up in the world in a way that it's basically conscious and more friendly to the planet and to people. So I think that is where the disconnect in terms of brands will become much more apparent.
Diana Verde Nieto, many thanks to you for joining us on The Agenda.
Thank you very much for having me.